Hello, my dear friends and students. Welcome to today's session where we have to see that in detail construction of DC motor. So, in last session, we have seen the working principle, and according to that working principle, we know if a current carrying conductor is placed in a magnetic field, it feels a force and it starts rotating. Now, we also know that the construction of DC machine, that is for generator as well as for motor, is 90% one and same. Only the difference is in DC generator we required only one supply for the field winding, no supply for armature winding, no external supply we are using for armature winding. But in DC motor we used two separate supply for the field winding as well as armature winding works on DC. So DC supply we have to give for the field winding and armature winding. These two different currents produces two different magnetic fields, and interaction of these two magnetic fields will exert a force on the conductor. According to this working principle, how exactly the construction of DC motor is and what are its important parts as well as its functioning, we have to see one by one. So as shown in this figure, we know one external covering is called as yoke. So it is an external covering which produces a mechanical support for the poles. So poles are used to wound and field winding. Then pole shoe which creates or which increases the magnetic field area. Then after that we have armature core. On that armature core there are number of armature tooths, and inside that armature tooths we place the number of conductors. These all conductors are connected via a separate winding called armature winding. So the diagram is shown for the 4-pole DC motor. Then when this armature is start rotating, it is mounted on a shaft which is permanently connected. So when armature starts rotating, shaft also starts rotating. So for electrical external electrical supply we uses brushes for which gives the external supply to the field winding. So this is all about the construction from the figure. Now we'll see the functioning of each one in detail. So the important parts of the DC motor is nothing but yoke, field winding, poles, armature winding, commutator and brushes. So first of all, yoke. It acts as the outer support of the DC motor. Also it provides a mechanical support for the poles. Second, poles. Poles of a DC motor is an electromagnet, means once field winding is wounded on that and supply is given to the field winding, that pole will act as an electromagnet which will produce a magnetic flux. The field winding is wound on or over the poles, so pole produces magnetic flux when the field winding is excited. Third part is nothing but the field winding. The coils wound around the pole are called field winding, and they are connected in series with each other to form field winding. When current passing through the field winding, magnetic flux is produced in the air gap between pole and armature. Next part is armature. Armature is a cylindrical drum mounted on a shaft in which number of slots are provided. Armature conductors are placed in these slots. These armature conductors are interconnected to form the armature winding. Next one is nothing but the commutator. A commutator is a cylindrical drum mounted on the shaft along with the armature core. It collects the current from the armature conductor and passes it to the external load via brushes, which is most useful in generator part. Next, last one is the brushes. Commutator is a rotating, so it is not possible to connect the load directly to it. Hence, current is conducted from the armature to the external load by the carbon brushes which are held against the surface of commutator by springs. Again, brushes plays two different roles in generator as well as in motor. Whatever we have discussed just now, it is applicable for generator part, and for motoring part we have to give an external supply to the armature winding via these brushes. So we use these brushes for just an external electrical contact. So according to these all important parts, now we have to discuss how this motor works exactly. So now we know the functioning of each part. So simply step 1, when field winding is mounted on a pole and field winding is given or current is given or supply is given to the field winding, then this pole will act as an electromagnet and it will create a magnetic flux in the air gap between these poles and the armature. Now one type of magnetic field is present over here. In second step, using this external supply to the armature winding, we provide a current to the number of conductors. When current starts flowing through these conductors which are mounted on a armature tooth, then the current or it will create its own magnetic field. Now there are two different magnetic fields are present. According to the concept, when current carrying conductor is placed in a magnetic field, it feels a force and it starts rotating. So these currents are carrying the current which from the external supply, and now it is placed in the magnetic field produced by this field winding. So here interaction of these two magnetic fields takes place. Somewhere addition and somewhere subtraction takes place and force is exerted on this conductor. When the resultant force is exerted on all the conductors is considered, then the exact force is exerted on this armature core, and that armature core starts rotating either in clockwise or in anti-clockwise according to the Fleming's left hand rule. Now when the armature starts rotating, it is permanently connected with the shaft, so also shaft starts rotating. When shaft starts rotating, we complete or we achieve the total working of DC motor. Electrical input or electrical energy we are going to give in the form of field winding as and armature winding from externally. Electrical energy is now converted into mechanical energy because the rotation of shaft we are getting at the output side. So in this way the motor works where we can say that it is also electromechanical energy conversion system where electrical energy is converted into mechanical energy. So this is all about the construction and working principle of DC motor. I hope you getting this in detail. Okay, thank you all.